Glad you could rejoin us. Welcome back to our live show here on a Thursday with Michael Jolley, our guest. Plenty more to discuss with Michael. Such a varied background in and out of football. James Gregg is here as ever. James, you and I had a fantastic day yesterday.
We did.
Media managers' lunch.
Really good, great turnout. Loads of local journalists. Good to see so many managers there as well. Yeah, it was brilliant. Really good fun, wasn't it?
I think near enough the best turnout. I've been going to those dinners for quite some years.
It's quite nice as well, the dynamic. The managers feel comfortable in that environment with all the journalists, and they
shouldn't be. They really should be. No, they're fine, absolutely safe.
Yeah, it's good.
But it was very, very good to see so many. I mean, Paul Warne from Rotherham was there. Jack Lester, we've talked about Chesterfield, both the Sheffield managers, Chris Wilder and Carlos Carvalho.
Chris Morgan was there as well.
Morgan, Danny Wilson.
Yeah. Paul Heckingbottom as well.
About Paul Heckingbottom, Paul.
Yeah, it was very
good.
So
it was really good. Paul Mitchell, you name them, they were there. And some of these guys are going to be on this show, by the way. I had my recruitment officer at work.
Biggsy was all over it, yeah.
Mr. Wilder was recruiting for. Have you been on Biggsy's show? You come on. He doesn't want me to invite him every week, you see. That's what what it is. Your roundup coming soon. Let me just give a couple of name checks to people who've been in touch with me on Twitter, because there's been a lot of interest in Michael's appearance here tonight, Michael Jolley. You seem to have a real history here in Sheffield, going down to the likes of Greenhill and Low Edges, right? Alex Merrill, is that a name that means anything to you?
Yeah, I went to school with Alex, So
well, there you are. He said nothing bad about you. He just,
good.
Basil Nyoni, Hallam FC Reserves background.
Yeah. Well, you're seeing the extent of my playing career here, Alan. So
yeah, I know, it's a real pedigree, isn't it? It's lifted the programme up several notches, I can tell you.
My dad actually, in his towards the end of his life, was the treasurer at Hallam, and it's a fantastic club. And if I ever get any spare time, I try and get up to Hallam for a game.
Yeah, well, me too. I mean, and Sheffield. I love to take in the local non-league teams. You know, it's proper football.
Absolutely.
Also very attacking football too. It seems to me.
Especially down the hill.
Yeah, at
just
Hallam.
a bit.
But Hallam play better going up the hill because they know it so well. I always think, anyway. Forest, Crystal Palace, and Crewe are three other clubs that you've coached at.
Yeah, and all different and all good experiences in their own right. So Palace is where I started. Ian Dowie was the first manager, and he had a particular way of working. And then he was followed by Peter Taylor, again a very experienced guy. So I learned a lot from Palace, and there are some people still there who were there at that time, so good time there. Forest, they were in League One at that time, so Colin Calderwood was trying to get them out of League One. A lot of expectation at that football club, and certainly on the academy to produce players as well, so that was another great experience. And then Crewe was unique in another way, you know, big pressure to produce players from Dario Gradi and the football club, but again, another good learning experience for me, and another thing that I think moved me forward in my career and enabled me to get the job at Burnley where I ended up.
Okay, well let's move on to the two Sheffield teams. You know, he's a genuine neutral. Did you know that?
It's good.
An absolutely genuine Sheffield-born neutral. Used to watch him.
Two fence sitters sat here.
Same as me, because I wasn't born. I was born in Kent actually, and first few years of my life there. But my father was an Arsenal fan. And he used to go off to some mysterious place called Highbury, you know, when I was about 3 or 4. And I used to say to my mum, "Where's my dad gone?" You know, he said, "He's gone to Highbury. What's that? What's going on?" So he used to go there. And then a bit later, when the family moved to Chesterfield, naturally that became my team. So I support both the Owls and the Blades when I watch them, and want them both to do well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you are. You don't believe me? Just think.
Well, no, I do believe. I believe you. Of course, I believe you. Yourself growing up in sort of here. Yeah. How do you not have an allegiance? You know.
I think probably because I've moved away. So because I love Sheffield, and you look back and you see how they're both doing, you want them both to do well. Yeah. And like I said, as a young man, my dad was originally from near Leeds. He brought us. He moved to Sheffield when he got married. So he took my brother and I to the nearest game, which was 1 week at Hillsborough and the next week at Bramall Lane. So that was in the mid-80s. So Wednesday were probably the top dogs at that time, because Wilkinson got them up to the first division, and United were having a bit of a mixed time. But then United came strong with the Bassett era and Dean and Nagana and all that. So I've been pleased to see both teams do well.
What do you make of it now? It's a bit of a tale of, well, two tales within a city, the way things go, in the mood of the two sets of fans.
Yeah, I mean, United are flying, aren't they? I mean, United are just riding the crest of a wave. I think they've got the right manager now. You know, for a long time, I think they've tried to find the right fit in terms of a manager. I think now they've got the perfect manager for the football club. He understands the club. He understands the city, and and he's got a lot of experience. You know, I looked at his career a while ago. I think he had 300 games at Halifax 10 years ago plus. So he's got a hell of a lot of experience. And
he's not played for Greenhill and Low Edges, unfortunately.
Probably not. But
he has worked his way up from the bottom, taking points.
Yeah.
You know, very, very much so. And you know, big times to look forward to. Hopefully, you know, there's a large intake of breath at the moment about the extent to which the Sheffield United board will back the manager during the January window. It's very unclear the extent of that, and also the extent of the backing from the Prince. You know.
Yeah, I think. Over the years, Kevin McKay's put a hell of a lot of money into the club.
He certainly has 100 million pounds,
so,
let's be fair.
You know, he could turn around and say, I've not really got a return on that so far, but maybe that it's just around the corner. And
I think the onus is on the Prince this time, and he's got two representatives on the board. One of whom was good enough to come in here, you know, a few weeks ago, talking about the backing, but the proof of the pudding's in the eating, really, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll see. So. We'll see, won't we? We'll see.
Well, indeed. What's going on? I read the other day that Sheffield Steelers ice hockey boss was in a Wilder-esque rant.
Yeah,
his team,
I think it was one of those who wanted to see a bit of a reaction because they'd been on a bit of poor sort of run of form, and they got it last night because they, you know, mentioned
they won last night.
Won last night in the Challenge Cup. So yeah, good.
Excellent. What else is going on? Is that
it was
one of his stories.
Yeah, so we'll do the little roundup, and then obviously come back to Michael. So the Owls in action tomorrow night against table-topping, big spending, rampant and informed Wolves. A must-win game for Carlos. We'd probably say.
No. I mean, it's been billed like that as the media in respect of his job with speculation. But let me just tell you that, in my opinion, speculation in regards to what happens at Sheffield Wednesday and anything like that is really speculation.
Of course it is, yeah.
It's not informed because the chairman, Dapon Shansiri, does not do that kind of thing. He doesn't operate in a nudge and a wink basis, and the journalist who wrote that story won't. Assuredly have got it from Shansiri. And all my signals suggest, why on earth would you, whether there was a justification for sacking or not, and history suggests that in the Championship, if a team is performing as below par as Wednesday are, it can happen quite easily. But why would you suddenly say it's a must-win game when you're meeting the Championship leaders Wolves? It makes no sense whatsoever.
Absolutely.
So I don't think it is in that sense, not at all. That's my view.
We'll see tomorrow night, won't we? It's 7:45 on the telly as well. The Blades, they're wanting to sort of get out of that little rut that they're in at the moment. Keep playing the way that they have been. I'm sure they will get a result at Deepdale on Saturday. They play against Preston on Saturday afternoon. A great win for Sheffield FC in non-league away at Cleethorpes last week. They ran out 4-0 victors, and they play against Carlton Town at home this Saturday. The ladies, they lost their closely fought derby on Sunday against Donny Rovers Bells. They lost 3-2. They've got a bit of a Christmas break now, not got a game until the new year. Hallam FC, they're 9th in their table. They're away to Nostell Miners Welfare on Saturday. Rugby Union, we've got two clubs in National 2 North, which is the sort of the third tier of English rugby. Great standard of rugby. Tigers, they've won 7 and lost 7 of their 14 games so far.
Sounds like a Sheffield United version of rugby, doesn't it? 1 7, lost 7, no draws.
Absolutely, yeah. They lost to Huddersfield last weekend, but they play against Leicester Lions on Saturday at Dormoor. While Sheffield Rugby Club, they're hoping to get their 3rd consecutive win this week, and what a turnaround for them. They actually started off with 7 straight losses start of the season. They actually beat Otley away from home last weekend as well. What a great result that was. Sedgley Park, who they're the visitors to Abbeydale this weekend. Steelers, we've just mentioned them. They're in pole position as they head into next Tuesday's Challenge Cup second leg with Dundee Stars. They won 7-2 last night in Scotland. Semi-final place up for grabs then. The Steelers, last year, you may remember, they reached the final of the Challenge Cup. They wasted no time in trying to get themselves back into the last 4 last night. The wintry weather led the Sheffield Sharks championship game at Surrey Scorchers last week, and it was actually put back an hour after the team coach got stuck in traffic on the way to Guildford. However, the snow, it couldn't stop the Sharks, and neither could the Scorchers, because they actually won 89 points to 84, and in action tonight
Sounds
as
a great
well.
Game, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's 5, isn't it?
In action tonight in the BBL Trophy, sort of like the FA Cup, because you get some of the lower league teams, and they're actually playing one. Manchester Magic tonight at the EIS. Women's basketball as well, Sheffield Hatters, their player Helen Naylor, she actually made history yesterday. She became the first player to score 1,000 points in the Women's British Basketball League. She scored 19 points last night. They won 86-71 away at Caledonia up in Scotland as well. And Nick Matthew, friend of the show, of course, in his final squash season, he's in action tonight. Probably starting just around now in Manchester at the World Championships. It's the quarter-final. He's going for a 4th world title. How great would that be in his final season as a pro? Brilliant
Good luck,
stuff.
Nick. Never ever write that man off.
Nick,
Good luck. Come on. Yeah. Talk about come on England as well, and Joe Root. Hey, what a fantastic feeling to wake up this morning. I'm afraid I was zonked after yesterday's arduous day, shall we say. So I was not watching or listening during the night. But to wake up this morning and hear, that there were over 300 for 4. Brilliant, and a century maker in Malin. It's
Absolutely.
the way we want it to go.
We've got to get to 450, 500, haven't they? We've got to. It'd be great to see that.
A huge day, really, for the whole team and Joe Root in terms of you start to think, no, whitewash, what whitewash? We're going to make it competitive.
Of course, absolutely.
Let's hope so. Sheffield United, the game against Bristol City, I think it's 4 without a win now, but they're performing and entertaining the fans. And I don't know if you saw the Bristol City game. You had the remarkable scenario there of a team down to 10 men at 1-1, chasing victory, and ended up losing. And I've no doubt Chris Wilder's reflected and thought, should I have just taken the point? But I don't know. I think a lot of what they've achieved this season has been down to that boldness, which has taken people by surprise.
Absolutely. I think whenever I've had the chance to watch United, they've played with a real. There's no fear in their play. They're on the front foot. They want to go out and try and win games. And I think that's been reflected. Obviously, I think they've had very few draws, haven't they?
Only one draw.
Yeah. So it's been a very attacking approach, and they've got goal scorers, and they look a really good side. Obviously, they've had a little run at the minute, but I'm sure they'll get back on track soon. Yeah,
I'm sure they will. I think it's more the signal it sends out that if suddenly they had said, I will take a point, negative changes from the bench, which is entirely understandable, kind of just changes that gung-ho mood that there is around the place, where they're just going for it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, substitutions can be viewed in so many different ways, but I think as a coach manager, you're looking on, you're trying to get as many points from the game as you can. So I'm sure Chris will have made those changes, in the best interest of trying to get a point from the game.
One thing that shouldn't be overlooked, and I know you see a lot of the Blades as well. Being a supporter, that's out there now.
Of course it is.
That's out there. They've had a lot of injuries. Let's be fair about this.
Of course.
They've actually had a lot of injuries this
Baldock
season.
and Freeman, the 2 right wing backs, who I think are quite interchangeable, both as good as each other. Obviously, the big one's Paul Coots. There was a sort of mini striker crisis at the start of the season where Ched Evans was playing with an injury up front. Obviously, Leon Clark's come back in and done just amazing. But you look at the injuries.
Lavery got into a bad injury, fractured eye socket or cheekbone up here.
Absolutely. There's so many things that have gone against the Blades.
And they've
obviously the goalkeeper at the start of the season. I know Blackman sort of did a job, did well when he came in, but you're looking there sort of probably 4 or 5 big injuries. Really. And now obviously you've got the suspension to Fleck. They've had a lot to contend with.
They
it's not
certainly
been all plain sailing.
And no complaining and getting on and just getting on with it, and it's really working out. Mentioned cricket, we mentioned squash. We've been right round the houses. What we haven't come to is working in New York as a city trader. But graphically and tragically, as you look back, you were, thankfully not tragically for you, but you were working in the proximity of the World Trade Center, weren't you, in 9/11? How close were you?
I was about 1.5 miles away, so too close for comfort, certainly.
I mean, you were in the office when the aircraft went into the building?
Yeah. Not that we were aware of that, but no, I mean, New York's a fantastic city to live and work in, and it was a great experience for me to be there, but obviously that event was horrendous. When I first went to work there, I was taken under the wing of an Italian-American trader who introduced me to a lot of people in the industry, and one of those people I became quite close with, and sadly we lost him on that day. So, a harrowing experience, and I think the one thing I take from it is it's given me a really strong sense of perspective when you think about the situations those people were faced with. You know, if ever I think of having a bad day, you know, I'm reminded of the fact that it could be a lot worse.
Absolutely. And the scenes around, when you became aware of what happened, must have been an absolute utter chaos. And presumably, within your office, relatively close, there was a bit of degree of panic as well, wasn't there? About
some people were certainly panicking. I think it was sort of pre-internet or very early internet, so information was scarce at that time, and you were really relying on the television for the information. But certainly, you know, I think we were on about the 20th floor of our building, and it felt much better to get down to the ground floor of our building and get north, which is what we did. But I mean, what can you say? It's extraordinary that I happened to be there at that time, and very sad. And like I say, the one thing I can take from it is a sense of perspective, I think.
Does that help then when you know your training ground's covered in snow and, you know, or you've lost at the weekend or whatever? You know, does that obviously plays a part, doesn't it? You know.
Yeah, it does. I think your character is really important as a football manager, because you're going to get setbacks. I think you've got to have good people around you. So my wife is fantastic in terms of giving me support, especially, you know, moving overseas. It's a big challenge for us as a partnership, but you know, she gives me great support. So yeah, keeping that strong sense of what's really important, I think, is important as a manager.
It's often lacking in football because it's often trotted out. I mean, it's not a trite saying, and you've not used it in any light sense, keeping a sense of perspective. But it's often mentioned on Twitter by football fans whenever there's a real tragedy. And it kind of denotes that within football, usually, there isn't a proper sense of perspective. For it to be stated quite often, it becomes almost life and death.
It's an emotional
Well, certainly the hatred and the feeling in it is ridiculous at times. Ridiculous,
I mean,
toxic, shall we say.
I went to an Old Firm game last season, and that was something special for the feeling between the two clubs and the two sets of fans. But I mean, people get emotional about the game, and that's understandable. But obviously, there's a limit to it, how far you can.
There is. I mean, at the moment, nobody deserves to be abused or disrespected in the way that, okay, it's understandable, say, Sheffield Wednesday supporters, the way they're feeling at the moment. You can understand exactly, you know, what their mood is, and certainly public opinion is against Carlos Carvalho, and you can understand all of that. But when it goes into the depths of abuse, it's just not right. Although, you know, is it?
I think when you take a job as a manager, you understand that you're signing up for the potential for that to happen.
Yeah.
But I think from the outside, I think over the piece, Carlos has done a good job at Wednesday.
Yeah, and that's a perspective.
And you know, he's got them to the playoffs twice, I think, and within a stroke of the Premier League. So I think if people take that long view, then they can see some progress.
But at the moment, I think a lot of the criticism is justified. It's not personal, but I've given some myself in a column today. Yeah. He's set up with 4-4-2, you know, repeatedly, obviously believes in it, and I always feel really uncomfortable about sort of pretending to know more, which I don't, that every football manager I've ever dealt with knows a hell of a lot more than me about the game, you know, and as I know more about my job. But looking in from the outside, I just hope that against Wolves in this big game tomorrow, they at least try something different, almost anything different, so they're so predictable for the opposition, I mean, it seems to me.
I don't want to speak about another manager, but what I would say is, I remember being in the office at Burnley with Sean Dyche, and people sometimes used to level at him. He always selected the same team, the same players, in the same formation, played 4-4-2 a lot, and in the end it worked for him. So it's a really tough one. Sometimes the toughest thing when everyone's screaming to change it is to keep, if that's what you believe in, is to keep it the same. But I know Wednesday fans that I speak to, they want to see attacking football. They want to see the team on the front foot.
Absolutely.
And you understand that, of
absolutely,
course.
Absolutely understand that. And they show later in games when they're reacting to being behind what they can do. But it's almost desperation late on. If you can start a bit more like that.
Yeah, I know a few of the players from Burnley. So Dave Jones, George Boyd, Ross Wallace. They've been the course before. They've got a lot of experience in that changing room. So,
which also says they should be higher than 15th in the table. And the players have to take some responsibility for that as well.
Absolutely. I think I wouldn't be writing them off at this stage. It's still only. I would not. It's what are we coming up to Christmas? So
10 points. I suppose getting one or two key players back. Yeah. You know, Forestieri principally, but others as well. Boyd being one of them, in January, and particularly Hutchinson, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know.
And make a difference.
They've had a couple of setbacks, haven't they? Wednesday, Hutchinson and big player, really big player for them, and it's probably what you need almost, isn't it?
He's a big character too, isn't he? And he's a driving player, physically, a presence and a good quality footballer as well, good ball player. So
is that something you do? If you're managing, would you stick by your gun? If you had 3 or 4 results not go your way, but you're thinking I'm going to believe in this, or are you a bit of a tinker man?
I think you've got to look at what you've got and try and get the most out of what you've got. One thing I am big on is looking at who we're playing and trying to establish their weaknesses and play on those. So, for example, when we played Malmo, we decided to play man for man all over the pitch with a sweeper, which is something we'd never done before.
Right.
But then we were 3-0 up after half an hour, so it worked extremely well in that particular game. So I think you've got to be a little bit flexible, but then you've got to have a core kind of belief that you do work with consistently over time.
So what comes first then? You're in a recruitment drive at the moment to put together a team and squad for next season. Do you have a pattern of play in mind that you're looking to recruit players for? Or do you recruit the players and then think, what's the pattern that suits these players?
I think there's 2 parts to it. I mean, for me, particularly after the Burnley experience, the character of the player is going to be really important. So any players that we recruit, they need to be the right type of person to come and help us in the level of football we're going into. Beyond that, for me, again, Burnley's taught me that sometimes you can't afford to be too dogmatic about how you want to play the game. So if you've got a particular group of players and they've got certain strengths, for example, if their strength is direct play, then it makes sense to play direct. If you've got a lot of technical possession-based players, then do that. Our owner at AFC wants us to be a possession-based team, so we're now trying to bring in technicians who are able to play in that style. And if we do that and we get the right characters, then
so you've been
we
told
can have a good season.
This is the way that we want you to play.
I mean,
that seems a bit odd.
Yeah, not so much that. I think the identity of the club is they want a club that plays, and there are clubs like that in this country. Arsenal perhaps might be one.
Yeah, West Ham always were.
West Ham always were. So, they're keen that we don't just thrash the thing down the pitch, which is not something I would do anyway. But they want a certain style of play, and I understand that, and we'll try and deliver it.
Looking to recruit from hereabouts in England?
Well, I think like any manager, you want to. Sometimes you want to recruit players that you know. So the players I know are all in this country, although I know some now in Sweden, but most of the players I know are in this country. So, yeah, there's 3 or 4 players that I'm working towards bringing from here.
Burnley players on loan?
That's an option. Obviously, I will need to speak to Burnley about that. But I'll see if Ashley Barnes is available.
Are players of non-league
Ashley Barnes,
That's a good story, yeah. Non-league players, we've only got a minute, of a standard to play at your level in Sweden, or not?
It's really difficult to compare the levels. I mean, Östersund, who we play, they're playing Arsenal, so taking non-league players from here to play Östersund is tough. But of course, young players who are still building and developing, then maybe they can be ones who build and develop in Sweden.
Fascinating stuff. Michael, it's been great to talk to you. We've covered such as it always does, as it has the whole year. This is our last live show of 2017, because we've got 2 recorded shows coming. I think John Sheridan's one, Bob Booker's another. If you'd missed those 2, it's perfect balance as well. Ex-Blades legend, ex-Owls legend, those are coming up. This one, if you missed, do recommend on my YouTube channel later this evening, courtesy of Phil Through the Glass. Thank you very much indeed, James. Thank you, Michael. It's been fascinating.
Thanks, Michael.
Remains for me to thank you for watching, and a very Merry Christmas, and also a Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2018. See you.